Hello again, everybody. Welcome back to the Poisoner's Almanac. I'm your co-host, Adam.
I'm Rebecca.
Hey, sweetie.
Hi.
I like your hair.
Thanks. How's your day going?
Oh, it's great.
Lovely Saturday. Saturday, right?
It is.
Saturday. I've been doing stuff with Camilla's schooling and stuff like all week. So I had benchmarks to take, but it's like a little different because she's doing the online stuff, right? And so she had to go in person for her language arts and math one. So I took her to an in-person.
How many kids were there?
Quite a few.
Yeah.
I mean,
Camilla said, what, like a couple hundred?
Well, that was just for fourth grade when I took her. There was different days for each, I think, grade.
Fascinating. And would that be from like this region? Our city would be like, they're all converging on this.
Yeah. And maybe surrounding areas too. But they try to meet you where you're at. So even if you're in a more rural space, they try to meet you where you're at. But so then her social studies and science ones she did here, and I just kind of spaced those out for her because she had other lessons to do, but she didn't have live lessons this week because they were just trying to make sure everybody was able to get their testing done, I guess, and all that. So and I think Monday and Tuesday they have off because of, Ratchet Columbus Day or whatever. Columbus.
He ended up in prison because of everything he did.
He was a complete fiendish villainy character. I don't understand. Whatever. He was a terrible person. But here we are. It's also Indigenous Peoples Day. So there's that.
That's fair.
They did add that on, but it's like
Columbus is the Spanish Inquisition in a different zip code.
Also, he's
like the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. Austin, Texas.
Can you imagine that like kind of show on like one of his stupid boats? We had to color those stupid boats back in the day and memorize their names. Who cares?
The Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. We all know the names of his 3 ships. Do we know the names of the 3 branches of government?
Camilla does. We were playing Magic cards.
Close one.
We were playing Magic cards. They actually had a lesson on that recently. And she threw out this board wipe and she goes, and that is the judicial branch.
Brother.
And I was like,
she did not. Rebecca.
She's brutal, that game, dude.
And that is the judicial branch. Bro. Okay.
Well, yeah. And
okay.
And her teacher said something kind of funny. She's like, there's the executive branch, which is not supposed to be able to declare war. Not supposed to. Like he was.
Yes.
So it's been an interesting.
There are rules.
It's some interesting lessons there, but.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So let's jump into comments. We got a whole gaggle of them from Spotify. You guys are blowing up Spotify. Let's see. Is it Iosa or Losa? I can't tell if that's a capital. That's probably a capital I. Iosa? It's 2 Z's. Iozza. But really, it's just a screen name because they say in the comment, hey, from the UK, by the way, I am patron member Lauren Smith.
Okay. What's up?
Hello, Lauren. There is a castle near where I live called the Bolsover Castle, and they do jousting events, which I think is awesome.
Isn't that how, didn't Henry, one of the Henrys, I want to say it was, I get the Henrys.
Critically wounded in a joust?
Yeah, I get the Henrys and the Louis mixed up sometimes, but it's Henry which one was the jerk that like killed most of his wives? Henry VIII? Henry VIII. Because I think he had like a wound that never healed from something.
Was it a diabetic wound?
He might have had diabetes. He might have. Well, I think he got the wound from doing something, and it just never healed because maybe he was diabetic, maybe, or he might be suspected as having been.
Right.
But yeah.
Veronica says the not deer is my favorite cryptid.
Oh, nice.
It's an ugly piece of lore.
Look, I'm telling you, if I see something like that, I don't care if I believe in it or not. I'm like, I'm out. Nope. Nope. Not today.
Not today, Satan. Thomas Paris, I hate to bring it up, but a lot of poor farmers of Appalachia were tricked out of their land or mineral and timber rights by New Yorkers in the 1800s. That's correct.
That makes sense.
And we never forgot that. And when I say tricked, I mean people who could not read a word asked to put an X on a contract for money by carpetbaggers.
They did. I feel like that's true of politicians too, going around and just acting one way and not being who they say they are. But like,
he continues and says, West Virginia native here, by the way.
Yeah. And like the whole medical community, I'm sure they've had some
of course
feelings before ethical standards came into play.
Of course. Unfortunately, when I began working in home health care It was the first time in my life that I met people who were illiterate, because I would go way out in the woods. It would be somebody from a minority group, usually a black person that was in their 80s or 90s, and they were illiterate and had always been so. They would go to sign the tablet that I use for documentation, and they would just make an X. And that hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm like, and the thing is when it's not, it's not like just taboo to be illiterate. It means you are easier to manipulate.
Yeah. It is a, if they could keep people illiterate, they would, I
100%.
think. I mean, that's what they did with African Americans when they, with slavery and stuff.
Exactly.
They didn't want them to read. They didn't want them to learn.
There are so many powerful people who benefit from those people that I met being illiterate.
Women too.
It keeps people from organizing.
Or if because when you know enough, things start to add up, and you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
This isn't just.
This is fresh on my mind because I love the TV show Ozark. And I'm currently in my second watch through. It's so good. It's dark, and there are two characters in there named Jacob and Darlene Snell, and they are the descendants of people who were pushed off of their land in the Ozark Valley so that a dam could be built and their land could be flooded to build the dam.
That happened a lot, actually.
Now, these Jacob and Darlene are heroin dealers. They grow opium plants on their farmland in the hills in the Ozarks.
I mean, gotta make that money. Health insurance, ain't doing nothing. So,
but they, throughout the plot, you discover part of their backstory is they have bought up small pieces of acreage and extended their how much they owned in order to get back at the power company. It's still a grudge they hold.
I mean,
it's part of their motivation as characters. So.
Look, I got a bit of a grudge against the power company around here. I tell you that. They putting all these fees. It shouldn't cost $600 a month.
It's way too much.
Anyway, but yeah, it's
carpet bagels.
But I tell you one thing: you let one of those big city people try to stay there throughout the winter, they'll be struggling. But those people who are illiterate, they know how to live out there. They were intelligent in their own way,
Oh, here we go. This is Juliana. She says, I'm an Oregonian, and yeah, we don't have funeral processions here. At least in Southern Oregon, we don't. I think the closest we got was a motorcycle rally thing for Charlie Kirk, but that was a whole thing of its own. And then Blaufrosch comments, as a fellow Oregonian, I agree that in my experience, people still wind up stopping because usually the procession is crossing an intersection and you're kind of stuck, which makes sense. So. From the Germs and Biowarfare episode, Loki Snake says, in the Old Testament, it says to cover up and isolate yourself when sick and to only be around people again when you're well.
Yeah, and you have to be looked at by
the priests
and stuff.
You have to be examined.
Yeah,
it literally has to be confirmed that you're not sick anymore.
So I don't know if you. I read something on. I'm just over here joining in. I read something over here on the Patreon. Hang on. Why I'd always go back up to technology. Me and technology. No, it was about the last episode. We were talking about all the fun Appalachian stuffs. It was Pterosaurus Hex. And she was like, the video of the guy who had something jump in his truck is from a new YouTube about strange occurrences in the Carolinas, and that specific incident took place near the Moores Creek battlefield. Now, I have driven the stretch of road where this supposedly happened after midnight for nearly the past 10 years. I work second shift, and the most exciting thing I've ever seen is a black bear. No bloody men on the side of the road. No, not human beings jumping in my back of my truck. Nothing out of the ordinary. What I'm saying is I'm rather disappointed by whatever lonely, spooky ghouls are supposed to be stomping around there. I'll be their friend, so long as they aren't trying to sell me something. Can you imagine MLM, not deers, just roaming around? Or I guess not.
These leggings feel humans. Like butter.
Well, this guy, I think the guy had said something. He said he saw what looked like a guy in uniform, like an old Civil War looking uniform, and he was all bloodied up. So he calls EMS, and who knows, somebody could have just been.
That's one of them hill people.
It was a feral dude. Didn't we talk about feral people? But no, it could have been somebody just messing around with him too. Of course, I don't know why you'd go to the trouble of, especially in the South, you're gonna jump in the back of somebody's truck, you're gonna get shot,
brother.
That's just what's gonna happen. But
there's a weapon in that truck, and you knew that.
But I just remember hearing the audio, and that man he was like That's not human. It's not human. It's like, oh Lord.
Yeah. Beatrice says, hi, this is from the Was It Poison episode. Hi, can I suggest the case of the mad gasser of Mattoon?
Ooh.
I know it's possibly mass hysteria, but I think it would be interesting to discuss. Does that ring a bell? Do you know what that is?
What's the
Mad gasser
what?
of Mattoon, Mattoon.
Huh. I'll have to look into that one. Let me put it in my little book.
Interesting.
In my little book.
Megan Geiler, Adam and Rebecca, I am an author. Dixie Painter is my pen name.
Oh yeah, I read that one.
That connects the dots. Thank you, Megan.
Oh, I got some great, and I'll have to go through these probably another time because there's so many of them. Because I need to ask if it's okay for me to actually share these too. But
yeah,
it was
we should
from,
include the if people give us permission, we should include the DMs and stuff in the
because
in
I got some from. It's either S Parks or Sparks.
Hmm?
Looks like S Parks, but she was telling me about some lore from Louisville. Is it Louisville?
Yes,
Louisville, Kentucky.
Louisville, Kentucky.
Is it Louisville? That was Louisville.
It's Louisville down in Jefferson County to the south of us.
We pronounce things weird down here. We've got Martinez. So it should be Martinez, but everybody's.
You can't sound anymore.
But people hear it's Martinez. Martinez. So.
All right. And Blaufrosch, this is the last one. This is from the Appalachia spooky episode. I started my commute to work this afternoon expecting to only get to listen to the first 15 to 20 minutes of this. Nope. Whole thing. Because of police activity on the highway. No serious injuries. My second favorite podcast, Stuff You Missed in History Class. Oh.
I think I've seen that one too.
Let the listener understand. She's saying we're better than them. So.
It's subjective, okay? It's probably a very good podcast.
No. It's a fact.
I know that one. I haven't listened to it a lot, but I know because I haven't had time to really do much else. But
my second favorite podcast, Stuff You Missed in History Class, also just did an episode featuring Appalachia content.
Now, see, I got to go listen to that.
See, all the cool people are talking about Appalachia stuff, right?
Appalachia it's charmingly spooky, you know?
And my she says WV, is that West Virginia?
Mm-hmm.
And my West Virginia roommates have always pronounced Appalachia the same way you do.
Appalachia. Yeah.
There you go.
Now I have heard I've heard people further north say Appalachia.
Yeah.
And I've heard people get in fights over how to pronounce it. I'm like, okay, right. Sorry. But I've always said Appalachia. Everybody around here says Appalachia. So
this is so funny.
As long as you know where I'm talking about, right? It's a big area too.
Natalie Steinberg. I just saw this. This is on the Botanical Gardens episode. She says, it's all caps. She says, I did not know Becca's special interest was poison and that there's a podcast where she could talk at length about it.
Oh, yeah.
That's exactly what we're doing.
I literally tricked you into making this podcast. Let's be honest.
A little bit.
You like it now, though.
It's a lot of fun. It's been fun. Also, when I was in the UK, I was at a castle that still had a functional poison garden. This is the coolest episode. Yeah, she's referring to that botanical garden. Then she follows up. Update, I saw the Blarney one. Also, kissing the Blarney Stone is terrifying.
Yeah, because you have to get underneath.
Yes.
I think. Yeah.
Because it's embedded in the masonry at the top of the ruins, and you have to lay down on your back over the edge of the balustrades, and you can see straight down 2 to 3 stories to the ground.
No, thanks. Nope. I'm terrified of heights.
Natalie, that's amazing.
Not the Blarney Stone. Hasn't people been kissing that thing for a while? What is this, germs and stuff? Yeah.
There's got to be some.
I just want to I don't want to kiss it. I want to get a Q-tip and just get some stuff and then go test it. Is that bad? And just get a sample.
It's not bad. It tracks.
Hey, hold my legs.
Hold my legs.
Ultimate trust right there.
That's true. Okay. Lengthy comment section, but we don't care because the comments are cool.
They're always fun.
Let's go for housekeeping here. Thank you guys for following us on whatever platform you're watching or listening on. Thank you in advance for leaving reviews where you can. 5-star reviews in the case of Spotify. Those are piling up on Spotify. Thank you. We have an average 4.9 rating, and we've got 400 ratings, I think, which is awesome. That functions like a tip jar that pushes the podcast deeper into the algorithm. Be sure to follow us on socials. We've got links in the show notes for the dedicated podcast socials and our personal ones. The Patreon is up and running. Link in the show notes to support the podcast. We have our 3 tiers available now. We have 3 tiers available now. One United States dollar per month gets you access to weekly bonus episodes, the option to leave us a voicemail that we play on the podcast, and you get shouted out by name. The $3 a month tier also includes everything in the $1 tier and Poison in the News, which we spun off to its own segment where we basically combine the overlap of poisons, and current events. And then the $5 tier gets everything in the lower two tiers and Camillisodes, which are exploration, foraging episodes that Becca and our 10-year-old daughter, wow, now 10-year-old daughter,
digits,
that Becca and Camilla do together. Those happen once a month.
And also once a month, we're going to be talking like some neurodivergent stuff, you and me, I think. Just some.
We will.
Sit, chill, and chat.
We will. We have never done long-form content about being a neuromixed couple.
Yeah, I'm going to try to do some lives coming up on the Discord. Don't forget the Discord. I got the Discord. What's it called in there? The link, the permanent link now set up in there, so it's a little easier to get to.
The link that does not expire. The evil that does not sleep. I'm just kidding. I just wanted to say that. All right. Speaking of getting shouted out on the podcast, those people are as follows: Pens Girl 71, Mara Santiago, Grace Lahan, Genevieve, Nahev Shatreet, Jay Went, Inken Hafner, Kiri Yorsek, Tay of Sunshine, Monique, Shane R, Sue Steves, James Mills, Megan Geiler, Liz B, Woolly Wolf NZ, Mama G, Nicole Rivers, Richard Miyako, Heather Nolan, Kaylee, Sasha Rubel, Maya Showstock, Maggie's Yarm, Ogre the Viking, Lynn Rocket, Brett Moser, Zaid, Neil Houdini, Nicole Crane, Jefferson Vargas, Carmen Q, Sarah G, Knittin Ninja, Estar, Olive Octopus, Betsy Rich, T-Bug, Christine Moljadi, Morgan Brittingham, Blaufrosch, a.k.a. Clara Jurisons, Vix, Anne Maria, Carl Ziegler Jr., Clyde, Jennifer Wilson Richter, Too Fidgety, Wendy G, Elena M.K., Caitlin Martin, Pungrammed 101, Minnesota SPT, Tasha, Stuart Slattery, Simone Valdez, Christian Schradergaard, Bonnie, Oma D, Rynel Alara, Kristen Arnold, Aaron Carey, Lynn Simpson, Melissa Emmel, Desiree Davis, Jennifer Ramirez Johnson, Dalek Party, The Warped Witch, Dizzy Dancer, Creative Otter, Yadmit, Supergirl Sway, Rachel, Anya Brandt, Ebby, Leah Marie Matson, Lady Digitalis, Jesse, Shay 10, Julia Franzoni, Sparks, Gloria Eichmann, Thomas Huff from Strings to Things, Soy Kasumi, Jessica Gasparini, Robert Jr., Kate Lennon, Donna Lanjanese, Lauren Smith from the UK, thank you, Anna G, Serpentine Fire, Melanie SLP, Stuart Lee, Solstice, Chris Milanak, Mackenzie Kennedy, Libby, Hetty, Hantapalooza, J Moon, Kelsey H, Paper Sky, Hannah Cook, Nikki Larkin, Campusar, Britt Clark, Paris Longer, Andrea, Shameless Agitator. It's more fun to say. I got myself with that. Ruby Salazar, Cassandra Smiles, Liam, Daniel Soar, or Soiree, not sure. Let us know, Daniel.
He did let us know. He said,
what did he say? I'm sorry.
It's in the thing. He said we got it right.
What is it, Soar?
But I also said a different one, so I'm not sure if what I said was right.
I've quite forgotten. So sorry. Jasmine.
But he did DM us.
Thank you. And finally, Kapow 73. Kapow.
Sorry.
Thank you all for supporting the podcast on Patreon.
I do have something that maybe Lauren Smith from the UK or anybody else from the UK can inform me about, because I don't even know why. Maybe it's because I was thinking about lore and legends and stuff.
Yeah. There's
this really cool job I think you can have at like the Tower of London where you can be like the Raven Master, which sounds like my dream job.
Yes.
Well, one of my dream jobs. But you literally, like, because they have ravens at the tower. There's like this prophecy that says, like, if the ravens ever leave the tower, then the monarchy in Britain will fall, basically. I think.
What?
I think that's what it is.
Brother.
Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. The ravens that are there, I think they have their wings clipped so that they can't, like, I mean, it's kind of cheating, I guess, but so they can't leave. But yeah, if they ever leave, the Tower of London and the British monarchy will fall. You're telling me. Or fail, whatever. But
the British government. He is the British government. You're telling me the British government spends the taxpayers' money to comply with lore.
Oh, like we don't.
Okay, listen. Let's not get distracted.
You really want to talk about what we spend our tax money on here in America?
I shan't. We do that in the Poison in the News.
What year is it? Who's the president? Sorry.
Right. I just love that so much. They're paying someone to be the Raven Master.
I want to be the Raven Master.
If I were the Raven Master, I would go to every bar, a different bar every night, just so somebody would ask me that question. Somebody would chat me up and say, "Well, what do you do for work?" "I am the Raven Master at the Tower of London." And then I immediately say, "Beat that."
It's amazing. I love it.
Well, what are you, a surgeon?
Yeah, these birds have apparently been, not these particular birds, but the ravens in general have been around the tower since like the 1600s under like King Charles II. But yeah,
Sweetheart, You have your next bonus episode. That's it.
We'll see.
It's
But,
Halloween-y.
Is it?
Ravens, Edgar Allan Poe, spooky.
Oh, ravens are there like year round, though, right? I mean, they should be.
What?
Who doesn't love ravens and crows
She said, with her entire backdrop of ravens
and bats?
Okay, that'll
Anyway,
bring
sorry.
us to today's subject. What do you got, sweetheart? You're so good looking.
Okay, whatever. Vampires.
Mm.
Um,
I want to suck your blood.
Vampires. Okay.
Okay.
We're going to talk about the origins and the influences of vampires. At least we have already talked some about like tuberculosis and the connections with that disease and vampire scares and some of that. But
Yeah.
I mainly want to discuss a bit of history and then some notable people who are renowned for their bloodlust, so to speak,
Right.
or those who might have inspired some fictional accounts of vampires as we know them today, like Bram Stoker's Dracula and all that. So today when we think of vampires, we tend to think of like Twilight. I don't know why I made that face. I know there are fans of Twilight out there. Twilight kind of came after I don't want to say after my time, but like I was in college and reading stuff that people made me read. So I didn't have time to read a whole lot of the new stuff that was coming out of that period. And that's when I think Twilight came about. It's not really my thing. I love fantasy, but I don't know. I couldn't really get into Twilight. Maybe if I'd been younger, I don't know.
The entire explosion of vampires and zombies during those years was really fast. Like The Walking Dead, it still has a massive devoted fandom.
I feel like The Walking
Spin-off
Dead
shows, you know.
The Walking Dead has been around way before Twilight, but I feel like it hit hit a new high.
It's such an odd zombie.
Because they started remaking, I think, the movies or something like that. Dawn of the Dead was one of them, I think. Day of the Dead, something like that.
It's just so fascinating that plot device just exploded. People are like, oh wow, zombies.
And then
you
have the I Am Legend.
You've seen that before? Yes. Listen, I Am Legend is really. I'm sorry. The way that they portrayed the CGI of those zombies is quite striking.
I wasn't really into the movie though. I found it quite boring. And then something happened to the dog, and I can't watch movies where something happens to the dog. Sorry, can't do it. Can't do it. But honestly, the way there was a lot of stuff that I was like, that wouldn't happen. That wouldn't happen. That's not how that works. No. So there was a lot of stuff that I kept correcting to in my head, and I'm like, I can't do this.
You spoiling the plot of a movie?
That's crazy. At the same time, zombies don't do it for me. I don't see zombies ever being a thing.
No.
I just can't.
No.
It's not. No. Not that vampires are a thing, but you know what I mean? Like, I feel like the idea of
the
zombies.
Plausibility structure crumbles when you talk about vampires.
It's harder for me to grasp the idea of zombies, I guess. I can do zombie video games just because it's like you're participating. You're trying to get past things and you're actively doing something.
Zombies are a big part of Game of Thrones.
I think I still need you to play like Silent Hill and Resident Evil.
And we
something.
need to film it
because
you want to see me play it.
I loved those two though.
Okay. What's our subject matter for today?
Okay, but just last thing.
I'm helping you
I know.
not talk about our subject matter.
Yes. Well, I'm going to be, cutting things too, but
okay.
I also I love the puzzles that are in those games a lot of the time. Sorry. Anyway, but what I was trying to get at, we know these stories. I love What We Do in the Shadows personally. I mean, it's such a funny series. I mean, if you guys are around our age, there was Anne Rice with, Interview with the Vampire. She wrote a couple of different books. Most modern vampire stories have this sort of romance, have a sort of
But you like that movie, right?
Have a sort of romance.
Interview with the Vampire, you enjoy that
element. I liked it when I saw it a while back. I haven't watched it in forever, but it was probably the only movie I actually liked Tom Cruise in. I've never been a fan of Tom Cruise, but I thought he made a good Lestat.
Yeah.
I don't like Brad Pitt either, though. Really. I never really saw the appeal to him, but I liked him as was his name, Louis? Is in that movie? I don't know. It was an interesting movie, though. But, yeah, you tend to see this whole romance element in vampire stories these days, but that's definitely not how they were seen centuries ago, and we're going to talk about that. Now, the term vampire finds its earliest records in English, Latin, and French, and references to vampirism were found in Russia, Poland, and North Macedonia. The modern term was derived from the Old Slavic languages, like Ompir, but without the V because it was added on later, and Bulgarian custom. The English vampire likely came from the French vampire, which came from the German vampire, which came from the 18th century Serbian vampire. Before all of this, however, there was the pagan worship of Upari, Old Slavic Russian, between the 11th and 13th. One Czech linguist, Václav Mašek, has proposed that the Slavic verb vrepit sa is to stick to or thrust into, or its hypothetical anagram vyperit sa. In Czech, the archaic verb vyperit means to thrust violently. Sorry, I'm focusing on am I saying that word right at the same time that I'm trying to read this?
That's really cool.
Because I don't speak, Czech.
Neither do I.
So I'm trying to do it as close as I can to what it might
not to shock
like.
You out of your seat, but I don't speak Czech either.
But so that's kind of an etymological background, but translates upir as someone who thrusts or bites. So it's kind of where that whole comes from, right? As a vampire. Now, when Christianity came to the area, upiri became an undead evil creature associated with heresy and sorcery, as opposed to the whole pagan being that they worshipped at the time. There are obviously other old languages we could go into for the origin of the word, but it's a lot. So just know that the word that vampire comes from was around globally for centuries, though the creature being discussed has changed in various ways over time.
Yeah, you've already mentioned multiple languages and geographical regions.
Yeah, there's a lot. So it's been around. Now, the word vampire first appeared in English in 1732 in news reports about vampire epidemics in Eastern Europe. Early reference to the practice of exhuming bodies and killing vampires, if you will, can be found from 1718 after Austria gained control over northern Serbia and Altinea. Yeah, many cultures, even centuries ago, acknowledged a sort of precursor to what we know as a vampire today, including the Mesopotamians, Hebrews, ancient Greeks, Manipuri, and Romans. These were more like demons and spirits, though, with similar traits. The drinking of blood and eating of flesh was common among ancient demonic beings in a lot of ancient cultures. I found it interesting, though, because I know with Christianity, there is a part where Jesus tells them to eat of his flesh and drink of his blood, which is probably why a lot of the Pharisees were heretic,
yeah, they were
they
were hunting for a way to accuse him of blasphemy.
Yeah. I won't go too deep into that because I could totally go on a whole different level of how come they accused people of witchcraft, especially in the Catholic denominations, because they believe that it goes down as the actual
transubstantiation.
Yeah, it's
it becomes
the flesh,
the blood and body of Christ himself.
That sort of vampirism.
It's a little creepy.
I mean,
no offense to the Catholics in the audience, but that's weird.
Well, for me, it's just but you're burning and hanging witches.
Right. You're expecting me not to be mystical, but you also have some mystical beliefs. So
it just kind of confuses. It just kind of confuses me. That's no hate on anybody.
Just say dogs go to heaven, and we're fine.
I can be down with that. So now the Persians were one of the first groups to describe a blood drinking demon. Such creatures drinking the blood of men were shown on pottery found in the area. In ancient Indian culture, there was the Vetalas, which were ghouls that inhabited the bodies of the dead, and the Pishacha, or Pishat in Thailand, I think. But in these places, these are spirits of evildoers or those who had gone mad that had returned and ate the flesh or the energy of the living, or in some cases even possessed the living to drive them insane. So if you feel like you're going insane, it could be the Pishacha or Pishat if you're in Thailand. I hope I'm saying that right. Lilitu was the mythical creature of ancient Babylon and Assyria, believed to be a demon who lived off the blood of babies. Now this would become the entity known as Lilith in Hebrew texts, and Lilu, the daughters of Lilith, were also found among Hebrew demonology. A lot of the religions that you see with Judaism and Islam and Christianity, you see a lot of similarities with the Assyrian stuff that came before them.
Right.
So with Lilith, this name, this being is derived from Lilitu, which was not a Sumerian, but Babylonian and Assyrian sort of thing.
Sure.
There were also estries in Jewish texts who were described as female shape-shifting, blood-sucking demons that specifically went after Jewish babies during the night. There were the Impusai, correct me if I'm wrong, all of my Greek and Roman mythology fans. Looking at you, Dalit Party. She's been a big help for me on how to pronounce a lot of these things. Much thanks to her. This is the daughter of the goddess Hecate, who was described as a shape-shifting female spirit that seduced and fed on men. I'm talking about the Impusai, not Hecate. Hecate is her own thing. She was said to only have one leg made of copper or to have a donkey's legs, and has only been known about from her role in 2 to 3 Greek plays by Aristophanes and Philostratus. All I hear is Philoctetes from Hercules. I know it's Philostratus, but I'm Philoctetes. That's not him. No. She is mentioned again later in other works, but is then described as an extremely slender woman with multiple feet, one of bronze, one a donkey's foot, one an ox's, one a goat's, and one a human's. So that's interesting way to get around, I imagine. They also had the Lamia, a child-eating monster, and later a night spirit / demon, and also a Mormo, which was also a child-eating monster that parents apparently used to scare their children into being good. It's like a boogeyman of sorts, I suppose.
Got it.
These are all kind of similar beings, basically.
Listen, parenting with fear is the best way.
I mean, look how good we turned out, right?
We're fine.
The Turkish had ubirs, which could shapeshift, assuming the forms of both humans and various animals. They could also seize the soul of a living being and exert control over its body. Someone inhabited by an ubir, it literally turned that word into Uber. Ubir.
Well played, Apple.
Watch it be pronounced Uber, but to not get anybody, confused. Ubir. If you're inhabited by one of these creatures, you're said to be constantly hungry. They would become increasingly aggressive when unable to find sustenance and ultimately resort to drinking human blood. The Norse had the Draugr, which was mainly described as an undead creature of various sorts depending on the region. So you've got a lot of undead, flesh-eating, blood-sucking sort of creatures from the old days. Then we come to the Middle Ages and the introduction of Christianity throughout Europe and other areas. Interestingly enough, the creature that became known as the vampire evolved from those ancient blood-sucking, flesh-eating entities into something more Christian, if you will. According to the book, Roman Catholicism and Fantastic Film by Regina Hansen. She's a lecturer of rhetoric at Boston University and a writer of supernatural history and fiction. But according to her, the vampire was now no longer a demon from a supernatural realm, but a reanimated corpse, a dead person who retained a semblance of life and could leave its grave much in the same way that Jesus had arisen after his death and burial and appeared before his followers. The transformation of vampire myths to include Christian elements happened throughout Europe as various regions converted to Christianity. Their vampires also became Christianized.
Let's go. Love it. Yeah, it's so Jesus coded,
I'm pretty sure this is when you have the whole idea of using a cross to repel vampires not being able to stand on hollowed ground. So the introduction of those kinds of things, those kind of elements, I suppose. Christian churches of this era began to describe such creatures as minions of Satan. It's Satan, actually. Now I want to watch Wreck-It Ralph. But yeah, now, while not common, there were some Jewish tales of such beasts around this time as well. The 16th century rabbi David ben Solomon, even Abi Zimra, help me, wrote of an uncharitable old woman whose body was unguarded and unburied for 3 days after she died and rose as a vampiric entity, killing hundreds of people. He linked this event to the lack of shmira, guarding, after death, as the corpse could be a vessel for evil spirits. we mentioned some superstitions where, like, if someone dies, you're supposed to keep them company.
I'm not
so that they
superstitious.
can. I'm a little stitious. Anyway, so you see that kind of superstition or custom in quite a few cultures. In 1672, in modern-day Croatia, there were reports of panic among villagers linked to stories that a local stonemason, it's either Juro or Juro Grando Alilovic, had become a vampire, also known as a strigan by the people there, which also means warlock.
Okay. I'm familiar with Striga from The Witcher.
Oh, there are, like, I think in Greek and Roman mythology, they have the striges as well,
Okay.
I think. And that's also kind of connected here, too.
There's also a weapon in Destiny 2 called the Osteostriga. It spreads poisonous explosions as you defeat enemies.
Sounds like my kind of weapon.
It's fun.
So, yeah, but here it also meant warlock, strigon or strigon. And basically,
Is it an I or an E there?
I.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure that could change at some point, but
Depending on maybe where.
there's a warlock named Stregobor in The Witcher also. I don't know if that's connected or not.
Let me just look.
I've got you. I'm sorry.
Hang on. Here we go. Yeah, the striges were like these bird-like, I'm hoping I'm saying this right, but they were these blood-drinking nocturnal bird-like demons or witches that fed on human flesh and blood.
It's bird-like. The Striga in The Witcher is that.
Striga,
It's one of the monsters he fights, of course.
Okay. Maybe it's Striga then, and I'm saying striges. The three striges.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Right.
I could be saying it wrong. But I remember them in, like, being in other video games too. Like the ones, the turn-based fighting games. I can't remember exactly which ones. Not Baldur's Gate. I don't remember it being in Baldur's Gate, but something similar.
Diablo?
Maybe. I don't.
Or the D&D game?
I just remember fighting one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember where. Not in real life. But anyway, this particular person they believed had become a vampire, and he was harassing his widow in the night. Other stories about this vampire include him rising from his grave and knocking on doors of those living in the village at night, and a person in the home dying usually soon after that. So, like, if he knocked on the door, someone in the house would die soon, basically. Sounds very Appalachian. If you rock that chair, nobody in it, you're going to die.
You feed that dog gunpowder, he'll guard the back door
That's like
all
your
night.
favorite one, isn't it?
It's so funny.
A priest tried to repel him with a cross. Then someone tried to stab him in the heart with a hawthorn stake. It bounced right off of him. In the end, it was sawing off his head that finally vanquished him. They had to dig him up and cut his head off. Now, this story was the first mention of a real person becoming a vampire. And now there is a vampire-themed bar in the area that he once lived, so that's fun. In Russia, the word heretic, which you can probably say heretic here,
Yes.
was synonymous with vampire. Whoever denied God or his commandments became an heretic after his death, the improperly immortal figure that wandered the night in search of people to feed on. They should make a game where you have to fight heretics and around Chernobyl. So now they're like radioactive heretics.
That's a brilliant idea. Indie game developers in the audience.
And you better be able to pet the stray dogs because you know they're there too.
Yeah.
Now, the fear of vampires was still present in the 18th century and led to many bouts of panic in different parts of the world. One such panic began with an outbreak of alleged vampire attacks in East Prussia in 1721 and in the Habsburg monarchy. Chin boys.
Heyo.
You know who I'm talking about, the Habsburgs. They had a long history of incestuous and... You know what? I know what my next bonus episode is going to be on.
Easy to spot.
The Habsburgs and but that was pretty honestly common in noble families and royal families and such. So anyway, but yes, in this particular monarchy, this was between 1725, 1734. This later spread these sort of alleged outbreaks, if you will. Now, the first infamous vampire case involved the corpses of Petar Blagojevic from Serbia. I sound like such a noob when it comes to languages. I'm sorry. Blagojevic was reported to have died at the age of 62, but allegedly returned after his death, asking his son for food. Like, bro, dad, Okay. When the son refused, he was found dead the following day. Like, dang, your dead daddy gonna come ask you for food. And you're gonna be like, no. So yeah, he was dead the next day. Don't refuse your dead parents' food. Okay. Everyone in Appalachia knows this. Sorry, I got excited about that for some reason. Blagojevich supposedly returned and attacked some neighbors who died of loss of blood because, he was eating the blood, drinking the blood. There was another case as well involving an ex-soldier turned farmer who allegedly was attacked by a vampire like years before and then died while haying his field. Some believe he awoke from his grave every night to feed on the neighbors. While many of these cases mentioned were rural, even government officials were taking reports of vampirism and having the bodies exhumed and examined for signs of such. It was just, there was a lot of like rumor and then fear and then panic. And I mean, yeah. So in small towns, the people were digging up bodies to drive stakes into them in case they were vampires. And you'll see like in some places, they'll have dug up people and found that their heads were cut off and like put under their arm or between their legs, or because, the vampire can't find his head, he can't come bite you or whatever. Or, he's not going to be able to get out without his head. There's other things, like mutilation of a corpse because of it. There's a bunch of different stuff that I've heard of. The whole is it scythe over where the neck is in case he gets up, he's going to cut his own neck. Yeah, that's a thing too.
Okay.
A lot of different stuff on how they tried to prevent vampires from coming back from the dead. Now, there were books and treatises being written by well-known and respected officials as well on the matter, many promoting the existence of vampires. The Empress of Sweden around this time, this is around mid to late 1700s, Maria Theresa put an end to the chaos where she was by having her personal physician exhume and then examine these claims. Well, examine the claims, exhume the bodies. Can't really exhume claims, right? Yeah. And so he concluded that vampires were not real, and the empress passed laws prohibiting the opening of graves and the desecration of bodies. Other parts of Europe did the same later, but of course vampires lived on in folklore. I mean, I like how someone just decided to have some common sense and be like, all right, well, you know what? I'll have someone look into it. Now quit digging up bodies, right? So, you know what causes vampirism? Tylenol.
Happy Halloween, everybody.
I am kidding. I hope everybody knows that I am kidding. So, some reasons put forth for the belief of vampires and hysteria of the Middle Ages to the early 20th century include the misunderstanding of decomposition in various conditions. Maybe a body seemed fresher than it should. And honestly, it might have just been a colder season and the body was taking longer to decompose. The nails seeming longer due to the retraction of the skin around them. A lot of people believe that your nails continue to grow in death. It's not really true. It's actually the skin just sort of retracts as you decompose, and it makes your nails look longer.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Bloating due to the gases in the body so they look like they're well fed when they dig them up. It's really just the gases in their body, like building up. There were also a number of premature burials back in the day, which itself is terrifying. In such cases, there might have been sounds from coffins and graves. Then when dug up, finding nail markings on the inside of the coffin, bloody nails and fingers, bruising, lacerations around the mouth and nose. Now, this was thankfully more rare of a case considered with vampirism suspects, but being buried alive was a legit fear of the day. There wasn't exactly, people would just look at you and be like, yep, looks dead. You know what I mean? Like they didn't exactly have great ways of doing that.
I remember the CPR class. I ended up recertifying my CPR with the same instructor for several years in a row. And he was an ex-paramedic EMT. Actually, he still was at the moment before he retired. He always made a distinction between clinically dead and actually dead. So like the fact that you have to distinguish it even now lets you know it could easily be mistaken back in the day.
And depending on medication, there's a lot of things that can make you seem dead when you're not. Mm-hmm. So it needs to be, that's why we have medical professionals who make that call. And you may think like, well, if you don't feel a pulse, I'm like, not everybody knows where to check for a pulse, first of all. If you're checking somewhere weird too, it might just be that they don't have blood flow to that area. It could be a lot of things. So yeah, it was a big fear back then for sure. They even had like special graves. Some people made special graves with bells in case they got buried alive.
I've heard of that. Yeah, that is wild, bro.
Usually those who could afford it, mind you. Now, there were diseases like tuberculosis, a pneumonic bubonic plague, that just sounds fun, that were vicious to the body, made it appear like there was blood on the lips or the face sometimes. Other diseases connected to vampirism in the past included porphyria, rare blood disorder, rabies. Legend actually once said that a man was not rabid if he could look at his own reflection, which is kind of an allusion to the legend that vampires have no reflection. It's part of it. Wolves and bats, which are often associated with vampires, can be carriers of rabies as well. As seen in animals, the disease can also lead to a drive to bite others and to a bloody frothing at the mouth. Both of these diseases are also tied to an aversion to light, if you will. I mean, same, but I'm not rabid. Now, we know about classic fiction like Dracula, Nosferatu, and of course more modern fiction. So I want to go into some real people whose stories were infamous enough to make them influences for such tales. And I was going to do all of these people in this episode. However, that's going to be much too long. These ended up being longer than I expected.
What? That's wild.
So today we're going to talk about Elizabeth Báthory. Well, technically Countess Elizabeth Báthory of Exed. And she was this Hungarian noblewoman with allegedly odd hobbies. I am going to mention next week, I'm going to talk about Vlad the Impaler. Yes. And perhaps another dude not so far from where we live who might have inspired some tales. Let's talk about, girls first. She was born in 1560 in Royal Hungary, spent her childhood at Exed Castle. Her parents were the Baron George VI Báthory, whose brother was actually the ruler of Transylvania. I mean, come on. It's pretty cool. Just saying. Her mother was Baroness Anna Báthory of Somlyo. Anna Báthory was the sister of the Prince of Transylvania. No, it seems very weird. I didn't see any sort of, maybe there was some incest back in the day, but I didn't see it in their family tree too close to Elizabeth Báthory. I was like, wait, the dad's brother rules Transylvania. The mother's brother is the Prince of Transylvania, but this Prince of Transylvania would go on to be the King of Poland and then also the Grand Duke of Lithuania. All these noble duties back then, you know. Now, Elizabeth was raised Calvinist Protestant. She was made to learn Latin, Hungarian, German, and Greek. She had wealth, rank, education from childhood, all the privileges of a noblewoman, if you will. She was believed to have had epilepsy as a child. Back then, it would have been called falling sickness, where they were. She had a lot of seizures as a kid. Maybe it made her fall. I don't know. An old treatment or remedy for that period where she lived was to put the blood of a non-sufferer on the lips of the patient. Don't do that.
Don't do that.
Other remedies were similar, giving the one with seizures a mixture of non-sufferer's blood along with a piece of skull once the episode ended. Don't ask me whose skull, just a piece of skull. Anyway, there is some possibility that Elizabeth gave birth to a child when she was between 12 and 13 and that the father was a peasant boy living in town. The child was said to have been given to a local woman who had close ties to the Báthorys and that this woman took the child to Wallachia, which is modern-day Romania. Most evidence for this happening has been found in rumor of the nearby village, and the notion is often disputed amongst historians, so I don't know if that's true or not, basically. So Elizabeth was engaged to Mount Ferenc Nadasdy in a political move. She did become pregnant by a peasant boy a year after she got engaged. She was hidden away during the pregnancy and for the child to sort of be born in secret. Not sure what happened to him. Probably something similar to if the first one was real, what happened to that one. But yeah, she was married to Nadasdy May 8th, 1575 at the age of 15. I don't know if he knew that she'd been pregnant before. I don't know. Honestly, I didn't look too much into like what he thought going in. It was more of a political sort of situation at the time. Now, the Union provided land in Transylvania and the Kingdom of Hungary. They would live in Nadasdy's castle with Báthory maintaining the place, as well as some other estates and several surrounding villages during his absence in war duties. 1578, 3 years into their marriage, Nadasdy became the chief commander of Hungarian troops, leading them to war against the Ottomans. So she was basically responsible for the business and maintenance of the estates and that of the villages, plus the care and the defense of the people in those estates and in villages. Now, her husband would come home from the war, but he died in 1604 of unknown illness.
Flu-like symptoms.
For reference, they did have children at some point, a daughter, Anna, around 1585, followed by Ursula and Katharina. And then in 1598, they had a son, Pal. Some sources say she attributed their birth to witchcraft for some reason. But she also liked witchcraft, according to some sources. So I'm not saying that she was like, ew, witchcraft. They couldn't have children for a good 10 years. And then suddenly they could have children. And she was like, oh, it's because of this witchcraft I've gotten into. That's what some sources say, okay?
My supplements.
Now,
gotta get comments on that one.
But yeah, that's just the source that I read, saying that. And if true, would make sense to some stuff that happens later on. But Báthory would later be accused of torturing and killing peasants of the villages, with witnesses attesting to her cruelty and of her horrific crimes. She was said to have lured girls and young women with the promise of jobs as servants in her household. Instead, she allegedly tortured them by burning them with hot irons, pouring boiling water on them, beat them to death with clubs, poured ice water over them and left them out in the cold to freeze to death, stuck pins under their fingernails, stabbed and cut them, covered them in honey outside and let bugs eat their flesh, sewed their lips together, also bit off chunks of flesh from their faces and breasts. And that's just a little bit. There's more that she did probably, or that was said by witnesses that she did. Okay.
I am aghast.
Now, it was said by multiple witnesses that she especially enjoyed using scissors to cut these girls' faces and bodies. She was said to use special tools to cut off victims' noses, hands, and genitals. She would also use scissors to cut the skin between their fingers.
It puts the lotion in the basket. It's giving. It's giving.
There were other such detailed tortures spoken of, but it's hard to find what did and did not happen here. 4 servants specifically testified that, and this, I guess, was in their words, one time her ladyship lay sick and therefore could not beat anyone herself, so a servant was compelled to bring the victims to the countess's bed, whereupon she would rise up from her pillow and bite pieces of flesh from the girl's neck, shoulders, and breasts. I'll definitely be putting a trigger warning at the beginning.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. Such torture and murder were testified as taking place both before and after the death of Elizabeth's husband, Count Nadasdy. Now, it was mentioned, however, that she seemed to be more ruthless and reckless after his death in 1604. Some witnesses claimed that the Count not only knew about the evils taking place, but that he participated and even taught Elizabeth various methods of torture. So they said he was a part of it too. What was said to be her downfall is the disappearance of several noble-born girls and young women. While she allegedly tortured and killed hundreds of young peasant girls, these families were not considered important or powerful enough to listen to at that, time. It was looked down on to abuse such servants, but not illegal, supposedly. Even to kill one. It was just like, well, you probably shouldn't do that too often, but...
You're telling me there were no institutional review boards?
When it came to the daughters of the wealthy and well-connected, however, things were different. Báthory had invited several minimally aristocratic ladies to her home, perhaps to better their name and earn higher status for their families. A lot of these were aristocratic/noble families that might have been not doing so great financially at this point and just wanted to sort of get an edge up, if you will. And they would think their girls being invited to the countess's home, like they would see this as an honor or whatever. When some of the girls seemingly went missing or lost contact with their families, Báthory was asked about them. The countess reported that one of the other girls had murdered the girls for their jewels and committed suicide. When her family demanded that the body of the girl be returned, Elizabeth refused, stating a suicide fatality had to be immediately buried unmarked on unconsecrated ground. She also blamed disappearances and deaths on epidemic illnesses breaking out. So she'd have to they had to be buried right away. Sorry.
This is the perfect time period for someone like her to do what she did.
Well, she got a little too bold, apparently.
Do tell.
It was also said that while staying in Vienna, Báthory ordered a renowned choir singer from the Church of Holy Mary, Ilona Harsey, to perform privately for her at her apartment. The girl was never seen again, and witnesses claimed that Elizabeth killed her when she could not sing for her, whether she was just terrified or shy and she didn't want to. Another source I found said that while visiting, she stayed in a palace where a monastery was across the street, and the monks there complained of inhuman shrieks issuing from the opposite building at night, and of blood running from the drains into the streets. The monastery's abbot was told that the Countess needed fresh meat for her health.
All right.
I am not certain of the validity of this particular story. However, I only saw it in like one source. Lutheran minister Istvan Magyari made complaints against her both publicly and at the court in Vienna, but it took until 1610 for King Matthias II of Hungary to assign 2 notaries to collect evidence on the myriad of charges made against her. 1610, Lutheran Reverend Janos Ponekunis was assigned to take charge of a church in the Slovakian village of Kastis after the death of the previous reverend. Now, this is right around where the castle, the Countess was. So this would make him the local reverend to Báthory and surrounding areas. He started to hear stories about vampires and the abuse and mutilation taking place at the castle, like the drinking of blood and this lady biting chunks of flesh off of girls and torturing them. Girls going missing. That's believed by some that one reason for Báthory's invitation to more aristocratic girls was because the peasants had grown suspicious of the Countess and refused to send their daughters there anymore, which, yeah. Now, this Reverend Janos began to investigate the matter himself, according to the legend, and wrote letters complaining to his superiors, including one to King Matthias II, the Hungarian king, to whom he revealed that he had found the bodies of at least 9 girls in the catacombs between the local village and his church. Already throughout 1610, the Hungarian parliament's investigators had been gathering depositions against the Countess from numerous witnesses, both noble and common rank. In the 1970s, so more recently, it's not too recent, but more recently, Professor McNally discovered a letter in the Hungarian archives from Janos to his superior describing how Elizabeth the night before had sent 6 invisible black cats and dogs to attack him in his home in the middle of the night.
Invisible?
Yeah.
Well, it's difficult to find a witness to that.
This is him saying this, I suppose. But apparently as he beat back these animals, he was screaming, "You devils, go to hell." None of the servants could observe any of the animals. And Janos wrote, "As you can see, this was the doing of the devil." So I don't know what was going on with him. The story goes that on December 27th, 1610, spurred forward by urgent reports from Reverend Janos and news that 4 corpses of young women were recently dumped over the castle wall in full view of the village, the Parliament ordered Elizabeth's superior and relative through marriage, Prince George Thurzo, to ride to Kastis and raid Elizabeth's castle and manor house and arrest the Countess. So things are kind of reaching back to higher people. Reverend Janos was a real person. I don't know, again, how much of his story is true, the whole invisible black cats and dogs thing. No idea what was going on there, but he did write letters and was helpful in the raiding and basically arresting of the Countess. Now, it just so happened that on the evening of December 29th, one of Elizabeth's servants, a young girl named Dorixa, was discovered stealing a pear. Apparently, this really pissed off Elizabeth, and she ordered that the girl be taken to the laundry room, stripped naked, and tied. Elizabeth and her female servants took turns attempting to beat Dorixa to death with a club. Now, Elizabeth was reported to be soaked in blood, and she had to change her clothes, they said. Dorixa reportedly did not die in the beating, and when Elizabeth got tired of beating her, she had one of the female servants just stab her to death with a pair of scissors. And she was known for torturing and murdering, but it was said of her that if there were any mistake, even littlest of mistakes made by the servants, she would do this kind of thing to them too.
This is grotesque.
Yeah. So the corpse was dragged out and left by a doorway in the courtyard for disposal the next morning. Around the same time, Prince Thurzo's raiding party arrived at the house and ordered the servants to stand aside. As the party burst into the courtyard, they immediately came upon the bloodied, battered, and still warm body of the murdered girl. A search of the premises revealed the body of 2 more brutally murdered girls in the manor house. Reportedly, a further search of the castle on the hill revealed numerous decaying bodies hidden at the bottom of the tower, which Reverend Janos had earlier refused to bury. I don't know if she was trying to get him to, get rid of these bodies or what. Elizabeth Báthory was immediately detained in her castle at Countess. A priest's diary from the period with detailed descriptions of events only provides this short matter-of-fact sort of note. It says, 1610, 29 December. Elizabeth Báthory was put in the tower behind 4 walls because in her rage she killed some of her female servants. That's just what it says.
Mm-hmm.
4 of her servants, 3 elderly females and a young manservant, were taken away by Thurzo to his place where they were questioned and also charged for conspiring with Báthory. And he brought them to his house. He has authority in this place. Now, reportedly, the same questions were put separately to each prisoner, and then their answers carefully cross-indexed and compared. There were also mentions of torture sessions to get some answers. So, way to become the monster, I guess. They were basically referring to methodology from the Inquisition, as it was still a time for witch hunts and,
Oh, yes.
Now, the accused servants who were in Elizabeth's service for a period ranging from 16 to 5 years, depending on the person, testified that they personally witnessed from a total of 36 to as many as 51, perhaps more, girls killed. These servants denied their culpability in the murders, but admitted to burying multiple victims, though the number in their accounts varied between 36 and 51. In addition to shifting blame to their mistress and each other, they also implicated a deceased servant, Darvulia, who had served as a maid and governess. The lower court trial lasted only for a day. The evidence gathered by Thurzo also included 289 witness statements. I'm not sure. I think these also came from them doing some investigations before the raid and all that. But at the end, 2 female servants were sentenced to death. This also gets gruesome by having their fingers torn away with hot pincers and then being thrown alive into a fire.
What?
There you go.
Good night. Sleep well, Wesley. I'll most likely kill you in the morning.
The male servant, because of his youth, was sentenced to decapitation and his body also thrown on the same fire. So I guess we won't pull your fingers off, but your head is totally getting cut off. The 4th servant was acquitted after it was deemed she had been abused by the others and seemingly just vanished from the record. A few months later, another of Báthory's female servants, reported by others to be a witch and confidant of Báthory, she went by the name of Ersi, was charged, tried, and sentenced to death as well. Now, Elizabeth Báthory herself. It's because it's like the THs are so close. Elizabeth Báthory herself had her own trial 4 days later before a higher court presided by the king's judge, but she was not allowed to attend or defend herself despite her claims of innocence. Now, there were at first 13 witnesses who testified. In addition, 4 of her servants testified, providing the details of the torture and murder that took place at the second trial, which Thurzo had made sure was in secret, by the way. And there's a reason for that. I'll get to that in a second. A servant girl, Zuzana, testified that she was told about a register that was discovered in Elizabeth's chest of drawers by a court official named Jakob Zilvasi, listing her victims, and that it totaled 650 names. Zuzana also testified that in the 4 years she was in Báthory's service, she witnessed the murder of 80 girls. Now, this is where things get a bit complicated, because the testimony of Zuzana, which, this was also, again, like I said, presided over by the king's judge, might have been entirely contrived for the purpose of gathering sufficient evidence to sentence the Countess to death and confiscate her properties and cancel the crown's debt to her, which there was a debt to be paid. So there was political motivation to accuse the Countess, whether she had committed such crimes or not. Elizabeth's wealth and properties would have been seized by the Hungarian crown if she was put to death for murder or witchcraft. Also, the Hungarian king, King Matthias, who was also leading the Catholic Habsburgs of incestuous fame, had allegedly borrowed money from Elizabeth's late husband while he was still living. As his widow, the debt was still owed to her. I don't know how much, but if she was executed, the crown debt would be canceled instead of being paid out to her surviving family members, especially if it was for murder or witchcraft or whatever. So Prince Thurzo had the title of Lord Palatine. Palpatine. Lord Palatine, meaning that he had the king's judicial powers in his regional principality. And it is there that Thurzo would stage these trials in his own jurisdiction so that he could ensure that Elizabeth's property and the debts to her remain payable to all the surviving relatives, of which he was one, right? Now, the plan and why it was secret was to quickly sentence the Countess to life imprisonment while the Parliament was on holiday. Maybe you just shouldn't shut down the government,
This sounds strangely American.
But yeah, they wanted to do this quickly and secretly to ensure, again, that her properties were not seized and that debt canceled. Now, the king was obviously not exactly happy about it taking place this way because he wanted a public trial. He didn't want to have to repay his debt, I'm sure, and he probably really wanted her to have the death penalty. But he gave in to Thurzo and other family who petitioned for no further attention or disgrace on their name. He had other matters to tend to anyway. But whatever. She was ultimately condemned to imprisonment in her castle and was walled in her apartment, basically. The exterior windows were bricked up. Only several small openings for ventilation were allowed, and food was given to her through a small opening. This was the only contact she had with the outside world, basically.
Wow.
They cask of Amontillado her butt, basically.
Wow.
I mean, they gave her food, but
okay.
Here we are. She died 4 years later on August 21st, 1614, at the age of 54, and all mention of her name in Hungary was prohibited for the next 100 years. And the memory of her faded behind the mists of vampire and monster legends of Transylvania until her identity.
Forbid the mention of her name. I can think of several people in office right now that actually no, because we need history to survive. to teach people what not to do. Anyways.
But her identity and trial records were actually rediscovered in 1720 by Jesuit scholar Father Laszlo Tarowski. So that was funny. Laszlo.
Bat?
They've stolen Laszlo.
Tucson, Arizona.
She would later become known as the Blood Countess, which you might have heard her called before. If you've ever heard of the Blood Countess. Wow. Elizabeth Báthory. Now, she became known this for another specific reason. There were stories that became widespread that Báthory would drain her victims of their blood and bathe in it to keep herself looking young. There is a good amount of debate over whether this story is factual, especially since it did not appear until a century after her death.
Yeah, but everything's on the table with this chick.
I mean,
come on.
In 1796, Michael Wagner, in a book entitled Anthropological Philosophy, was the first to widely publicize the story of Elizabeth's alleged bathing in blood as a skincare obsession, stating that after a chambermaid noted some hairs out of place in Elizabeth's coiffure, the Countess struck her so hard on the ear that the girl's nose spurted blood into Elizabeth's face. When Elizabeth wiped the blood away from her face, according to Wagner, she discovered that her skin seemed rejuvenated. Not how that works, but okay. Maybe she should just wash her face. From then on...
She's a psychopath.
From then on, she would bathe her entire body in fresh blood and had some 650 girls murdered for this purpose, Wagner claimed. As discovered later in 1983 by looking into actual documents from the period, nowhere in the trial record was there any mention of bathing in blood. It was local gossip and folklore that 18th century writers kind of ran with and called history, so I don't really know. There's no mention of it until, like I said, a good century later. That part, at least. Now, there have been some more modern takes that Countess Elizabeth Báthory was framed in a very inventive way so that family members could take control of the powerful widow's possessions. Apparently, her sons-in-law knew beforehand that her arrest was coming, but that could also be because they knew she was crazy or just murderous. Now, for one, the servants questioned were also tortured for some answers. Of 289 witness accounts reportedly retrieved by Thurzo, more than 250 were either hearsay or included no useful information whatsoever. The testimony that Báthory had listed 650 victims was a secondhand accounting of what a court official had discovered via that servant, Susanna, as we mentioned. The Habsburg court / King Matthias owed her money. They didn't want to pay. Báthory's support of her nephew, Prince Gabor Báthory of Transylvania, who was in conflict with the ruling Habsburgs, was also not great look for her future. But yeah, most historians hold that Báthory was definitely not innocent, but that some of her crimes could have also been exaggerated. In 1602, a priest wrote a letter that discussed the excessive cruelty exhibited by Báthory and her husband toward their servants. So do I think she was framed? No. I can see that things may have been exaggerated, but from what it seems like, there's quite a lot of evidence of people being like, look,
I just can't imagine.
She was terrible towards the servants.
Yeah. Well, when you talk
girls
about,
went missing.
Yeah, when you're talking about 600 and something people.
Well, that was what was listed in a register that was found.
Right.
It wasn't presented to someone to see, but like someone said they saw a number written down.
I mean,
but there were a number.
It's 100. But that's a serious footprint.
But there was the witnesses who said they saw this many, and then there were people, the girls who went missing, that kind of thing. So it's really weird any way you look at it. There was one lady, she wrote this article. She is like convinced that Báthory was framed and that she was actually a nice person, and that what was happening was she was actually sending these girls away to a school where they could better themselves, but there's no evidence of that.
But their parents never saw them again?
But there's just no evidence for that, like that I could find. Anyway, in 1970s, 2 new archival sources were discovered in the Hungarian state archives. One source dating from September 16th, 1610, 4 months prior to Elizabeth's arrest, containing 34 affidavits describing Elizabeth Báthory's torture and murder of many girls and virgins. These are in the state archives of Hungary and Budapest, and I believe Thurzo, these are part of Thurzo's accounts. A second source is dated July 26th, 1611, and is from the Crown's attempt to retry Elizabeth. They wanted to retry and make her have the death penalty, I suppose. And it is a massive collection of testimony from 224 witnesses attesting to the diabolical impulses of the Countess who murdered many innocent virgins of noble and non-noble birth. These are also in the state archives of Hungary. And I don't really see a motive for, her family might have wanted her stuff, but they would have gotten her stuff later anyway when she died. I don't know. And they would have gotten it faster had they sentenced her to death. But they also think that if she'd been sentenced to death, then people outside her family would have gotten her stuff, her land and her possessions and all that. And it's just weird though. I don't see the motive really being that them lying about all of that. That's weird. Because why would Thurzo go along with, she did all of this and then keep her alive? Wouldn't he have, if he was going to come up with something, he would have tried to clear her name a little bit. It wouldn't have been, she did this stuff, because that's going to get her killed, right? Because that's a lot. What she's allegedly done would get her the death penalty typically.
Yeah.
And they killed the other servants. It's just, I don't see it as a frame job, but
no.
I mean, I could see where there might be some exaggeration, some embellishment, if you will, because of the time period. There's a lot of, I don't know how much embellishment. It sounds like she did a lot of terrible things, whatever the case. So I don't think she's innocent, but like I said, there could be some embellishment with some of the stories, like the whole bathing in blood thing. Now, with such bloody history, the case of Countess Elizabeth Báthory might have been an inspiration for Bram Stoker's Dracula. And as I mentioned, next week I want to talk about another individual who was also an influence for such, that being Vlad the Impaler. So also kind of a gruesome bit of history.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we have it. What do you think?
Bloody good job, sweetheart. All right, folks, that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you all so much for watching and listening. We will see you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.